However, the concerns I'm really working with are issues of sort of memory, identity, and more specifically of issues to do with my own childhood. Now, unfortunately, as I'm an installation artist, most of my work is rather large and unwieldy, so I brought you in fragments, and where I can, photos to sort of show you really what the work itself should look like if I were to sort of bring it in, put it in front of you. And the first one I want to talk about is migration mitigation, which was my final degree show project. I'll just put some photos here. So for this installation, I have 3 large sort of perspex containers inside an environment which I cordoned off and sort of artificially controlled with light sources, various sort of temperature controls. And the main exhibits, really, were a series of, well, for the last exhibition I had 21 live snails, which have been illuminated. Now, yeah, it's alive and slightly perplexed by what's going on. You can handle them if you want. They're fairly docile. You don't have to if you're slightly the snails. Basically, for this project,
what they're called? Have they got names?
I'm afraid they don't have names. I'll show you actually examples of the snails I had for the last project. Unfortunately, because these are living things, they also die. So these are some of these shells.
Prematurely, or they die?
Well, I usually get them fully grown. I get them from an accredited source. It's a snail farm in Dorset.
Okay, so you don't kidnap snails?
I don't kidnap snails. I do not really agree with kidnapping snails. For normal snails, so they all come out.
That they live with you?
Yes. People kept asking me what happened to them after the exhibition, and the answer is I had a house full of snails. For this exhibition, it was the first time I really directly worked with sort of issues to do with my background. I have a slightly unorthodox background in that I grew up in a Marxist, feminist, lesbian household in Stoke Newington, which was part of the radical feminist movement and was sort of moving within those circles. Unfortunately, I was sort of victim of very sort of abusive circumstances, which politically was very difficult because no one believed us, because within that movement, the sort of the female-female relationship was meant to be the ideal, and sort of patriarchy was the problem, and all sort of like relationship problems and abuse came from men. And so we were sort of completely ostracised, and I was always taken into care.
So you're going to have to put something that's going to give me the giggles. What you're talking about is very serious.
I don't know. So I went back and I visited the house where I sort of grew up, documented it in sort of immense detail. And these are the sort of scenes which you see on the snails. I wanted really the sort of the empty rooms. They're part reconstructions. The house had really creepily hardly changed at all since I'd lived there. The snails really represent my memories of the place. I don't deal with what happened in the house directly. I deal with it obliquely. I think also the fact that I depict the empty rooms is kind of, I mean, I feel more empathy for the place, for the plants that were there, for the space itself than any of the people within the house. I took photos of the cellars. There are really weird, like extensive cellars that go underneath the house. Sort of corners, like Victorian wiring wired directly into modern wiring.
Has this project enabled you to move on in a way from that place?
I think it's sort of allowed me to deal with it in a different way. That I always sort of was confused and sort of slightly frightened by the space, or rather the memory of it in my head. And going there, it was really somewhere I felt extremely comfortable and really enjoyed. I'm not angry about it. I'm not trying to sort of hit people over the head with, this is what it's all about, and, you know, sort of, well, you know, say what you think about it, and I don't care.
And what's next for you? You've done this great personal task.
Really, I want to create sort of spaces that people can walk into. I mean, this is what I really did with this. I don't think it sort of was realised to its full potential.
You know, in order to help other people address this as the issue and sort of get the audience to come in and support it, you kind of need a little bit more established name in the art world to realise its full potential, because I always get a bit cross with artists trying to put their personal things and change the world for the better without the actual support.
Well, this is the thing, I'm not trying to change the world. These are the things that are at the crux of my work, and that's why I produce art. However, that is not the aim of the art I produce.
Just simply, how did you present this exhibition? I mean, did you have all that information you gave us now in there?
I had no information deliberately.
So basically, the people that are looking on this photo at the artwork, it's basically they're only fascinated by what they see there.
Yes.
They don't know anything
They
else.
don't know anything about it.
So they only see the cream. I don't know whether these are the snails.
Those are the snail trails.
Exactly. Yeah.
What are you working on next? What's the next piece of art you're creating at the moment?
At the moment I'm working on a project. I have access to a flat in Maida Vale which is currently being gutted. I get it at the period when it's sort of everything is cleared out and before it's about to be rebuilt.
Would it be the exhibition in that flat?
Yes.
Would you take photos? So actually the flat would be the
Gallery space.
gallery space.
Yes. Yeah, actually the flat belonged to my grandmother, and it has sort of connotations belonging with that, but I quite like the idea of sort of bundling things up. Again, I use the living elements, the insects. So for the main room I wanted to have a sort of the walls draped in coats, lots and lots of sort of coats from everybody I knew. I have access to these enormous atlas moths, they're not sort of so big, and have them flying about the room, sort of resting on the coats, moving in and out, and creating a space where someone can walk into that.
So there's no interest in selling works, I presume, from your point of view. You're just creating installations that people have a view or experience, but you're not planning to do anything that...
There are various elements. I have brought other works which we don't really have time to see, which are saleable. Also various elements are saleable, like the sort of the empty shells left over from these things. I think for the actual installations themselves, that is an issue, and I'd be sort of, working with either prints or sort of etchings drawn from that, or just again the remnants of the living elements.
And you think a buyer would be much more interested in buying a living snail in a shell with a painting on it?
Would you sell a snail, a live one?
Yes, I have no sort of qualms or emotional attachment to this now. I would want to ensure that someone had the capacity to actually sort of look after them and keep them alive, though. The living ones is more difficult. I'm not sure.
What's the extra price on life?
That's
the real question.
Well, they're just so much more interesting.
Great. I mean, the fact that we've looked at 2,000 artists and you made it down to the last 23 was also kind of already a great achievement. Whether you are selected for the show or not.